Tyler,
Tyler.
Tyler, are you going to be vacuuming up here too?
Yeah.
We're trying to record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life goes on.
Oh my God.
Recordings.
We're over here trying to make zero money. Can you keep it down?
Yeah. Gotta be a good housewife.
He's so good at it.
Googling Coco, you got it.
Keep googling. You in your jeans with no freaking socks on. What are you, a youth pastor?
Oh my God.
Where's your flip-flops at?
Oh my God. And your puka shell necklace.
And your puka shell?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Blair.
And I'm Kirsten, and we are mediocre content. And we just spent the last, 45 minutes trying to record our new ads.
Yes. Yes, we did.
What a journey.
And it went exactly how you expect it would go. Jinx, what did you just push on my computer? I don't know what happened. Okay, there we go.
We're doing so good this morning. It's about as good as anything that we've done in the past. Oh my goodness.
Indubitably.
But it's a new month, yo.
It is.
A new
Indeed
month.
it is. I can't believe it's October. That's
Ugh.
amazing.
I can't. Honestly, first of all, the fact that it's October, but also, second of all, the fact that we are 4 episodes from episode 50.
I know.
Like, oh my God.
And if you think we don't have anything planned for this, then you're wrong, because we definitely do.
Because it also just happened to fall essentially on our 1-year anniversary, which is also crazy.
Indeed.
So we have to do something a little special. We're in the works of planning. We'll actually plan that one. Like, it's not gonna be
No, yeah, we will.
Yeah. But
we're gonna celebrate our accomplishment of talking into the void for a year.
It's a lot of work, honestly.
No, it is.
Among all of the false starts we give ourselves, we're like, oh, this is gonna go, and then we just break apart. This is halfway through.
Truly.
It's fine. But yes, welcome to October. Today we're gonna be talking about moose, which Mises, mouses, I don't know. You know.
I like it. That's wonderful. I love moose. They're they're so much bigger than everybody thinks, and that's why I like them.
They're also so much faster than everyone thinks, and we're going to go over that too.
Yeah, that's a problem. We don't like that.
It's kind of absolutely horrifying.
So before we get into the Mises,
yeah,
we're going to talk about how our show is only for entertainment purposes and not for any kind of educational information.
I had no idea where you were going with that, and the
You're
fact
welcome.
that you were just segueing it into the disclaimer was actually very beautiful.
Thank you so much. I've gotten good at it after a year.
It takes a long time.
But as you guys know, we're not experts on anything. If you come to the pod to get any kind of advice, we're not the place for that, especially when you're trying to outrun a meese. But we are the place to learn about things, and we encourage you to do your own research and hang out with us and just maybe learn something you don't already know.
It's true. It's true.
And I'm in charge of the good news this week. There's only one story because that's how we're doing it this week, because
Sounds
I said
good.
so. That's why.
There's no other reason.
That's right. Exactly. So here we go. Florida has long ranked a distant third place behind California and Texas in installed solar panels. But now it is installing more solar panels than any other state, despite a policy landscape that's considerably more challenging than other states. And my main reason for picking this is because Florida gets a lot of bad news.
It does.
There's a lot of really terrible things that happen in Florida due to their wildlife or just citizens or weather. It's a mess. Yeah. So this, I felt we needed to put Florida on blast for a good reason this time.
Honestly, I feel really close to this one now that I know what it is, because that was my previous line of work. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah. Anyway,
so the Sunshine State connected 2,499 megawatts of solar generation capacity to the grid during the first half of 2023.
Wow.
blowing away these approximately 1,600 megawatts added by California and the 1,200 megawatts added by Texas, according to the most recent U.S. Solar Market Insight Report. It is the first time that the state has taken number one in solar installations, making a potential for clean energy inflection point for a populous state with a dirty grid.
Oh, dirty grid.
The way that they phrase that is very interesting, but basically it's making their grid a little bit better and not using as much like fossil fuels and coal, etc.
Right.
Florida's solar ascendancy is, why do I do this to myself?
That's a weird one too.
I know. The product is the product of two familiar forces: the Inflation Reduction Act's clean energy incentives and the stabilization of pandemic strained supply chains. So all is good. That's good things.
Yep.
It has also occurred despite energy policies that lag behind other states. Florida doesn't have a renewable portfolio standard and doesn't allow power purchase agreements, two policies that have accelerated investments in solar across the nation. Solar policies in Florida have tended to favor utility-owned large-scale solar solar. There's too many L's. Over residential and commercial rooftop power generation. Around 86% of the state's solar installed in the first half of this year was built by utilities. The state's largest power company, Florida Power and Light, accounted for 1,769 or 1,769 megawatts over that period, followed by Duke Energy, which is connected 389 megawatts.
It's quite a difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Despite the lack of a renewable portfolio standard, a ban on power purchase agreements, and dominance of utility scale solar, Florida does not have net metering, a policy that pays rooftop solar owners for the excess power that they export to the electrical grid, which is a shame because that would be super beneficial.
Yeah.
Solar-rich states such as California, Hawaii, and Arizona have seen utility-led campaigns seeking to roll back net metering over the last few years. Claiming lost revenue and unfair cost shifts from their ratepayers, utilities often insist on lowering compensation rates for solar customers or adding fixed charges to customer bills. So, last year, Florida lawmakers proposed legislation that would destroy the value of net metering by imposing fixed charges and minimum bills for owners of residential solar systems. Not the solar system you're thinking of.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
These anti-net metering efforts are typically supported by utilities, and that was certainly true of Florida Power and Light. Although this legislation favored by Florida utilities was passed, it was vetoed last April by Governor Ron DeSantis, our favorite human being. Just kidding. Who ascribed his decision to concerns over inflation and escalating energy bills.
Which is true. I mean, if you're in Florida, your utilities are probably pretty high because you always have the AC running. I can attest.
Yeah, exactly. Utilities have erected obstacles to growing Florida's residential solar, such as prolonged waits for interconnection, onerous reinsurance requirements, and institutional recalcitrance. Recalcitrance? But rooftop solar owners in the state still added 332 megawatts of solar capacity during the first half of the year, making it the number 2 spot in the country for home PV systems. So, the solar market across the whole country is forecast to add 32 gigawatts of new capacity in 2023, almost tripling the record of 13 gigawatts installed in 2021 and amounting to over half of the U.S. capacity in 2023, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. The industry is rebounding from a difficult 2022 replete with trade conflicts. We kind of all heard about supply chains during that time. Labor ethics issues and supply chain challenges. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. I know so my previous job was with a solar company. I'm not going to name the company because it's whatever. And I have a lot of issues. But anyway, one of the problems that we were facing at the time was, I believe the ones that we were installing were monocrystalline, which are the more expensive panels, but they have higher performance and can capture more energy. Yeah, they were, quote, the better panels, but of course this increased our cost, which means selling them was difficult in some regard because you know, all the other companies are selling poly, you can get more for blah, 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 blah.
Sure, yeah.
But the issue was the monocrystalline panels had specific parts that were then strictly coming from China. And we were having the issue with supply chain there, which means we were also having issue with supply chain here. And they were trying to come up with alternatives, but there weren't any that were being released to the market. You know, because there weren't any here with the same technology, or at least nothing that could like kind of speed up that process in time for us to have different options. So I also know that it was really expensive, and also during that time, to your point and to the article's point, they were trying to pass that legislation. The company was really worried. A lot of solar companies were really worried about it, and there aren't a lot of protections for people that have them, so there's not a lot of big incentives for customers either.
Right. And I think there's more incentive in places like California to have solar panels because it kind of offsets your utilities. You get discounts for putting them in because you're doing something good for the environment, et cetera, et cetera.
And also, unfortunately, having lived in Florida, I can say your utilities are high. I don't think, like, even when we lived in Maryland, even though it was a rather expensive place to live, I still think we paid more in utilities in general in Florida.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. And, you know, outside of it just being clean energy, I mean, people are looking for incentives. So if you can't, you know, offer a net metering option, then yeah, I totally understand why that would be difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
But despite that, they're on top.
Yeah. And it sounds like the bigger companies that are putting them in are using their incentives to do that, which is good, I guess.
It is super good. So glad to know that despite all of that, they've come out on top.
Exactly.
Surprising. I mean, if you're called the Sunshine State, I feel like you should probably have more incentive.
Some would say, you know, you would think.
You would think.
But you know what happens when you assume.
You know what happens when we think.
You're so right. You're so right.
You can't be doing that. Okay. So we're going to go straight from the beach to the mountains in the snow.
I love that. Did you know there's like this thing called the California Challenge where you spend the day going through all different types of climate, because there's like you can go from LA to the mountains to see snow, to then go to like the fall and then springtime climate. It's like a whole thing.
That's insane.
I think you can do it like most easily from Southern California. But
yeah, I've also heard
it's interesting.
Well, maybe it's not climate, maybe it's terrain that I've heard, but Utah is like you can go from like mountains to desert, like
no, you can
going top to bottom. But I don't think
we
it's
definitely
climate.
We did that in in 24 hours. Like it was misty and like mountainy and green, and then we crossed over the mountain and it was like desert, like red, you know, that clay looking. Yeah.
Nice. I love that though, honestly. That's what makes it so cool to live and I would say that's what makes America so unique. You know, you get kind of all the options in one state.
Exactly.
But these states are going to be closer to the north. And in fact, I didn't know this, but it makes sense. But moose were even in New York. I don't know that they're still there, but they even made it all the way down to New York.
Wow.
Okay. I know. That's horrifying. Anyway.
There's probably just not enough room.
Yeah. Well, and the whole habitat situation, not looking good.
Oh, great. Okay.
Also, when I made this episode, I thought, make all the boy moose go, wah.
Shout out Princess Diaries fans.
For real.
That's our audience right there. Is like the people who loved Princess Diaries growing up. Yeah. We're catering this to you.
I still want to mattress surf down a mansion staircase. Like, can we talk about that?
Yes.
Anyway, we'll just get started. It's fine. We'll chill. So, moose, alces, which is fun to say. This is literally the same word. It's Latin. Is the largest member of the deer family, Cervidae, order I've got it messed up. Hold on. Artiodactyla, using all the cool sciencey Latin words today. Moose are striking in appearance because if you've ever seen one, you might agree. Because of their towering size, they have a brownish black color pattern, super long legs, an extremely long muzzle, which is just their nose face area, like bigger than a horse.
Yeah.
And what they have underneath said muzzle is very unique as well. It's called a dangling dewlap or a bell. And it kind of looks like if a moose was a turkey. They just have like that thing hanging under, like a gizzard or something. I don't know. You know what
Turkey
I'm saying?
gizzard.
Turkey gizzard.
That's right.
Version. Turkey moose. I don't know. They also have the very iconic wide flat antlers. And instead of a deer where you have like all the very distinct points like tree branches, it literally just kind of looks like a dome with little spikes on the top.
Yep.
Like a reverse dome. Concave or convex?
I really feel like if I was a Native American, I would look at that and be like, bull.
You would. And that's why there's the character Bullwinkle, J Moose.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the name moose is common in North America, but it is derived from Native Americans. It is derived from the word moosh, moosh, called stripper and eater of bark, and it's the Algonquin language from the Innu people of Quebec, Canada. And in Europe, they call them elk. So, not to be confused with
There's
our elk.
also like elk.
Yes. Isn't that confusing?
Oh my God. I was watching on TikTok the other day, this girl who was at Yellowstone, and they were like staying in the hotel there.
Sure.
On the park, and in the park they let the animals just like roam.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So there's no like the elk could be right next to your window.
Right.
And that's your problem. Not the elk's
problem. And that's your problem.
Right. It's like mating season for them. So she's basically like narrating it like it was The Bachelor, and like all of these like female elk were like standing around, and this one male like elk was just bleeding. He was just like so loud. And that's what they sound like. Yeah. And she was like, well, he did not attract anyone with that particular sound.
Sad.
But we're gonna so and he was going up to each individual female, like trying to be like, will you mate with me? Will you?
And she was like, nah, I'm good. Thanks so much. Yeah.
He was like sniffing their butts and stuff. It was a whole thing.
Again, I iterate, if this it reminds me of the cat live stream. If humans did this in real life, how awesome.
So weird.
Just scream and sniff their butt and be like, you want to hang out?
You want to hang out? You want to be friends?
You want to be best friends?
In my cat's case, the answer is absolutely not.
For real. Oh my God. That's literally gold. I love it so much.
Yeah, it's really good. I highly recommend it. You guys look up elk sounds in Yellowstone National Park. It's the best.
You might find your new best friend.
You might. You never know. You never know. All right. I'm sorry. I interrupted. Go ahead.
Okay, that was hilarious. Moose inhabit the northern parts of North America and Eurasia even. And in North America, 4 subspecies are recognized, including the eastern moose, which inhabits eastern Canada and the northeastern US, the northwestern moose, which inhabits central Canada and North Dakota, Minnesota, and northern Michigan, the Shiras moose, which inhabits the Rocky Mountains in the US and Canada, and the Alaskan moose, because it's so freaking big, it has its own category, which obviously then inhabits Alaska and northwestern Canada. Although not widely accepted, some classifications also recognize several Eurasian subspecies, including the European moose, the Siberian or Yakut moose, the West Siberian or Ussuri moose, and the East Siberian or Kolyma moose. I think it's so cool that there's so many. Whenever you think of moose, I just think of it's just a moose, but there are so many different options for mooses.
Many mooses.
So many.
Yeah.
In addition to differences in geographical distribution, the different subspecies of moose are further distinguished by, of course, their size, pelage, antler characteristics, etc. And the differences in regional body sizes appears to reflect adaptations, of course, to their local conditions, which is just something natural, just based on what they are.
Yeah.
Moose primarily exploit plant communities of deciduous shrubs that have been disturbed by flooding, avalanche, or forest fires. They are avid visitors to mineral licks, of course, as well, which horses, they're not deer, but horses and deer also enjoy a good salt lick, if you don't know.
True.
It's just rich in vitamins and minerals, that's why. So in the winter, they may avidly consume conifers, such as the fir and yew trees. In areas of very deep snow, they may even tramp a system of trails called a moose yard, which is fun to say. And in summer, they may also consume large amounts of aquatic vegetation. The large, mobile, sensitive muzzle appears to be a specialized feeding organ that allows moose to exploit the large stocks of submerged aquatic vegetation in shallow lakes and streams, and they can dive up and stay up to 50 seconds underwater while feeding, which is horrifying. They're very excellent swimmers, and we'll talk about that later.
I did not know moose were aquatic until this moment.
Aquatic moose. It's the aquatic moose era.
I was going to say, like, the fact that they're so big and they don't eat meat is crazy.
Yeah.
But like, the fact that they can go underwater is wild. Because you take a horse in water and they can swim.
Yeah.
But like, it's not
a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. A horse in water. It's hilarious to me.
Not great.
Not great. Not great.
But then you take a moose, which is like twice the size, and like they still have the skinny legs and everything.
Indeed.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get into it. Wait till you learn how fast they can swim, which doesn't sound fast, but for the size of animal,
faster than me, probably.
Definitely faster than us. Moose are bold and readily defend themselves against large carnivores. During calving season, moose cows face grizzly bears and black bears. In late winter, when the snow is deep and moose cannot flee, they defend themselves against wolf packs. They choose hard, level ground with little snow for maneuverability, such as ridges blown free of snow or frozen lakes within a thin cover of snow. And when hindered by deep snow, they back into defense conifers to protect their vulnerable region and lower haunches from attacks by wolves. They may then charge the wolves and attack them by slapping them with their front legs and then kicking them with their hind legs, and they're powerful enough to unalive said wolves.
Wow.
Which is just sad times.
Can you imagine like hitting someone and it's just like dead immediately?
Just a whack. I had a moose slap me right across the face.
I died.
I died instantly.
Man.
Insta kill, KO. It's just sad. Anyway, unfortunately, this has happened before where moose have often killed humans
Not
as well.
shocked at all.
In Siberia, hunters armed with muzzle-loaded guns feared wounded moose far more than they feared large brown bears. That's how aggressive they can be.
I don't blame them.
Yeah. Due to the thick skin on its head and neck and its dense skull, which I think is kind of rude, an attacking moose would not be readily stopped with a small round rifle ball of soft lead. Obviously.
Stupid moose head.
Stupid moose head. Your thick, dense moose face. So rude.
Your snout and your dense skull.
Now I know why they charge. They're being insulted on the regular.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Dense.
Their feelings are just hurt, guys.
Exactly. Don't hurt their feelings.
Be kind to your local moose, okay?
That's right. Exactly. Moose normally escape predators by trotting at high speeds, which again we'll talk about later, which forces the pursuing smaller predators into expensive and tiring jumping, but which costs a moose relatively little energy. It readily comes to bay, but on its terms. It chooses low water where wolves are hampered in their movements, of course. Although moose are excellent swimmers, it does not choose deep water because northern wolves have relatively large paws and are also excellent swimmers. So they certain areas have to adapt to those kind of predator issues.
Fair.
But predation by wolves and bears removes the infirm, but may also severely deplete healthy calves despite the spirited defense of their mothers. So, of course, just natural selection, you're going to have some of those off chances where a wolf who has also adapted in that environment to have bigger prey options may just end up unaliving the moose.
It happens.
Moose do mate in September, which was last month, so we're now free of mating season. So that calves may be born in June to take advantage of spring vegetation, of course. The antlers are shed of the blood-engorged skin called velvet in late August, and the bulls are in rut by the first week of September. Rutting bulls search widely for females, but the bulls may also attract females with the smell of their urine, which I think is fantastic. They paw rutting pits with their forelegs, pee, and then splash that said urine-soaked muck onto their hairy bells, which is, again, the gizzard part.
Oh, interesting. It's like cologne.
Yeah. Disgusting. You smell that, ladies? I peed on myself. Delicious. Again, in human context, this is horrified. This guy was so hot. He just... I can't even go into what I was going to say.
It's the aroma for me.
I did not expect this episode to go this way, but I'm so happy it did.
I know.
The females
Nature is beautiful.
Is it? Yeah. That's pretty gross. Like females, just for context, can also be called cows in this case. So like cows, elk, bull, moose. This is why people are confused. Anyway.
That's true.
So the cow or female moose in this situation, in turn, may call to attract said bull. So they smell that and they're like, that's my man. And they'll be like, caw, and then they will just like mate, I guess.
Is that the exact sound that they make?
Of course. I totally researched it. It does not, in fact, sound like a crow.
Asking for a friend.
I don't know what you're talking about. I nailed it. Actively rutting bulls appear to receive more than 50 punctures per mating season, but they are protected by thick skin on the front and the neck, of course, which is also what helps them with predation issues. Rutting is expensive as bulls lose virtually all of their body fat, and their festering wounds must then heal. So they're like, it's a lot. Okay. I mean,
they really be charging at each other.
Do what you got to do for love, I guess.
Interesting.
Because of their large body size as well, they also have long gestation periods of about 230 days.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I'm going to go ahead and hard pass on that one.
Hard pass.
The unfortunate part is that twins are often common as well. So now you got 2 for 230 days.
Absolutely not.
The young are born tan in color, which contrasts sharply with the dark colors of the adults, which again are that blackish brown color. They grow very fast, but require maternal protection against wolves in the winter, like we talked about. They are driven off by the mother shortly before she gives birth again. So she's like, get out of my house. I have more to take care of. And then dispersed yearlings will roam in search of new living spaces on their own. Young calf moose and human hands tame readily and emerge as surprisingly intelligent, mischievous, but extremely loyal creatures. As mounts and beasts of burden, moose are superior to horses in muskeg and taiga, so those are just regions. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, moose became scarce owing to severe exploitation in unsettled times in Eurasia and to uncontrolled markets who were hunting in North America. However, they responded readily to protection and management. Today, moose are, of course, abundant in Eurasia and North America and are cherished game animals, which I don't know if you can call something a game animal and cherished at the same time, but maybe that's personal.
It seems like an oxymoron.
I mean, apparently they eat the snout. Specifically. Like that's
not what I thought you were going to say.
Bro, me neither. But it is. However, the other issue, so they're like, oh, they're recovering, everything's good, blah blah blah, we've got them maintained. The issue is with the restoration of also predator fauna. So of course the Save the Wolves programs, North American moose are again declining. So you save one, you curse the other. I don't really it's whatever. So with all of that, I also do want to talk about moose safety really quickly.
Ooh, okay.
Just a little bit.
Not that the average person encounters moose
true.
In the day-to-day life, but
very true. And I know some of us have seen the videos of people or their dogs out. I know I've seen one where like there's a dog out and the guy's like, oh my God. And like the moose charges at the dog. And like, it's like this whole thing where they're trying to get inside and like whatever. Yeah. So most people have seen moose aggressively in videos and context. So I just want to be very clear. Of course, like any other animal, moose can be very aggressive creatures depending on the circumstances surrounding it.
There was a girl that I went to college with who it wasn't
Chatham,
wasn't at Sweetbriar. And she ended up, after graduation, moving to Alaska.
Oh.
And she posted these videos on Facebook of like moose being like right outside her house.
Yeah.
And it was amazing and cool, but she like couldn't leave her house.
Right.
You don't want to get too close to the moose.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But it was cool.
They are cool. Well, then they're huge. Like you said, it's just
right. Yeah. It's
massive.
Like, exactly.
So generally, moose are perceived by people to be less dangerous than bears. More people in Alaska are often more injured by moose than bears each year. So that perception is debunked immediately. However, moose will usually flee when threatened. Of course, under certain circumstances, they can become aggressive like any other animal. People can be hurt when moose charge, stomp, and kick to protect themselves or their young, particularly during mating season. Understanding the body language when they're stressed can, of course, help you be safe. Fortunately, what you should know is most moose charges are bluffs. They're just kind of warning. It's like a snake when they like, when they like false, like move. It's just to help you back up and like know to maybe move somewhere else. But if a moose does actually charge, don't wait to find out if it's bluffing. Like, this is not a like chicken game that you should be playing.
No, yeah.
The idea is to run and get behind something solid like a tree or retreat to a safe place inside a building or a car. Because even though they're not normally aggressive, like we've been talking about, things like people surprising them, dogs surprising them, cars even surprising them. If they're hungry or tired, like me when I'm hungry and tired, you get a little aggressive.
Mating season, I'm
sure.
Mating
season is huge. Some people apparently even throw things at moose, which I think is just a death sentence.
Terrible decision making.
Also super rude. First of all, you called them dense. Now you're throwing things at the moose.
Right.
Like, this is not a bully situation.
It's not good. It's not good.
So give the moose an extremely wide berth if you happen to encounter one. If you have a dog, do not let them loose. Keep them close. Try to keep them calm or remove them from the situation altogether. If they're in the road or driveway or whatever, you just kind of have to be cautious and either let them take their time to get out of the way, or again, just keep that wide berth if you really need to get out. Of course, every tolerance level of each moose is different. Do not be waiting around to find out which one you've encountered. So anyway, basic moose safety. Again, September to October is the mating season, so just kind of steer clear, especially if you see a calf with them.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we'll take a little moose break.
Small break.
Small. All right, we'll see you guys on the other side. As you may know, we have all suffered from mainstream podcasts and live streams with good, reliable Wi-Fi. This has caused countless views and followers for these influencers and created large communities who engage regularly on their platforms.
If you're tired of having quality sound, video, and overall material for consumption, we've got you covered here at Mediocre Content Podcast.
Introducing Blair's Crappy Wi-Fi.
Have your podcast editor in literal tears each time you try to record. With Blair's Crappy Wi-Fi, that's me, you will have to edit every few moments of absolute silence as Blair is constantly dropping from the call.
You can even use Blair's Crappy Wi-Fi on live streams and have your sound echo into the abyss and your video drop, preventing viewers from seeing or hearing you. Because why would they want to?
To purchase Blair's Crappy Wi-Fi, you can send your application to mediocrecontentpodcast@gmail.com. Simply stating a time Blair's Crappy Wi-Fi has made your experience listening to podcasts and streams absolutely awesome.
We look forward to hearing from you, and good luck making it through the rest of this pod with, you guessed it,
Blair's Crappy Wi-Fi. Obviously, this is a fake ad, even though my Wi-Fi is, in fact, crappy. Feel free to email us all the same, but there's no way I'd be willing to give this crappy Wi-Fi to anyone, not even my worst enemy. Cheers!
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to continue on with our moose adventure with some exciting moose facts. I say exciting. You guys might not find these very exciting. We'll see.
I think they're exciting.
Okay, good. Might be scary. So the first one is that moose can actually move each ear and each eye independently, which kind of made, we made the comment about the density of their skull before. Can you imagine a moose looking like a lizard with its eyeballs? That's just horrifying.
Chameleon vibes.
Chameleon vibes for sure. A moose's home range can also vary from 5 to 50 square miles, which I think is a huge range to have.
I feel like all the ones that have 5 square miles are just introverts. You know what I mean? They're
Absolutely.
like, I don't want to hang out with anyone, so I'm going to stick to these 5 square miles.
That's fair. They're usually solitary anyway, so they're usually off on their own most of the time, and unless they're a baby.
Right.
The average lifespan is 8 years for a female, 7 years for a male, though some can live up to 20 years. There's also several vocalizations that they can make, including a loud bellow, as well as croaks, barks, and other rutting mating season sounds, like caca,
Yes.
for example. Females just kind of moan a lot because they're probably tired of being hit on, and the young just grunt.
Cute.
They do sleep on the ground, similar to deer, leaving beds of flattened vegetation or depressions in the snow. So you might even be able.
Cute.
I know. So you might be able to identify if one's around. So
we were driving near Yosemite, and I looked over, and there was a little horse farm, and one of the horses was like laying completely on its side. And I'm like, this, I know it's sleeping, but it looks bad. It
absolutely
looks really bad.
There's a lady on TikTok that made her claim to fame because her horse literally gets so many calls from the neighbors. Like, she's got a dead horse in the back. And she's like, it's just sleeping. It's kind of hilarious.
Excuse me, ma'am, your horse is dead. Actually, officer,
he's playing
it is
dead.
Breathing, and it
Laura,
is just laying on the
breathing?
ground.
Oh my gosh. Takes me back every time.
Mm-hmm.
They can also store 100 pounds of food in their stomach at any given time, which is good for them because it's sometimes a long winter and they're in the snow. So you got to have storage facility in your own stomach, I guess. Each year from April to August, the male moose grow a new set of antlers that can be as much as 4 to 5 feet wide and weigh 25 to 30 pounds. These large animals can run through the forest quietly at speeds of up to 35 miles an hour. They can trot at 20 miles an hour, and they can swim at 6 miles an hour and dive pretty dang deep while they're doing that. So that's the fact I really wanted you all to know. If you think you can outrun a moose, you are literally dead and wrong.
Not a moose being in a residential area and exceeding the speed limit.
Absolutely. I'm surprised they don't get more tickets.
That's what I'm saying. Just put it right on their antler. And then just like parking tickets.
Yes, exactly. I know that you want to run through this neighborhood, but I'm going to need you to go at trotting speed, please. It is 25.
That's right. That's right.
A healthy adult moose can eat 40 to 60 pounds of browse daily, which is just them, like, it's just munching. They're just grazing is basically what it means.
Yeah.
However, something that deer have, and remember, a moose is technically part of the deer family, but there are diseases that deer carry that they're unaffected by, such as brainworm. Those tiny parasites that are carried by white-tailed deer can often infect moose, as well as something called liver flukes, and they will eventually die from these very serious infections. So I don't really know how it's transmitted. It might be in poo or just by being around other deer coming into contact it. But deer are like, I don't really care. It just kind of lives with me. Moose are like, I'm gone. Like, this is it.
Literally dying.
Literally dying. Unlike other members of the deer family, though, they don't travel in herds. Like I said, they are pretty solitary, of course, unless they're babies with their mom, but they are eventually kicked out so that the mom can have new babies. Normal moose can stand about 6 feet tall or 1.8 meters tall from hoof to shoulder. They can also weigh more than 1,000 pounds or 450 kilograms. This is different from the Alaskan moose, which is, again, in its own subspecies and literally called gigas, meaning giant. They are, of course, the largest subspecies, with male adult Alaskan moose standing as tall as 7 feet or 2.1 meters at the shoulder, or from hoof to shoulder, and they can weigh up to 1,600 pounds. Females, 1,300 pounds. So they're really big.
Really big.
They're like, Shaq size. How tall is Shaq?
Let me Google it really quick.
It's basically Shaq, but a moose. Is, I don't think Shaq weighs 1,600 pounds, but I do think he's pretty tall.
Don't call him fat. He will come for you.
Yeah, well, they called the moose dense, so.
So Shaq is 7'1".
Wow. So yeah, so he's literally as tall as a moose.
Yeah.
Holy
I
crap.
mean, and that's only to the moose's shoulder, though, to be fair. Like, you have to include, like, the whole head and snout and
That's true.
antlers and all that.
That's true. A moose could eat Shaq. It wouldn't, though, because it's not a carnivore.
Correct.
It doesn't have the mandibles for that.
That's the only good thing about moose, I feel like, is that they don't eat meat. Because imagine if they did, it would be on site. Like,
we would,
literally.
Our whole race would be so gone.
So gone.
All right. So those are the cute little moose facts. Some of them less cute than others. But the final thing I want to talk about is a little bit of their genealogy, just because I'm a science nerd and it's fun to talk about genetics. Well, I think so. So species inhabiting the taiga, such as moose, present adaptations typical of both cold-adapted and temperate species, because obviously in the upper part of the United States, they're not going to be necessarily as cold as somewhere like Canada or Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
The taiga is described as a boreal biome situated between the tundra and temperate habitats characterized by deciduous forests. Interestingly, variation in antler morphology of moose suggests phenotypic adaptation to open habitats such as tundra and, of course, then to boreal forests. Therefore, moose may have displayed an intermediate demographic response to past climate changes between that of a reindeer and a red deer, perhaps characterized by less severe demographical fluctuations, so temperate.
Okay.
The modern moose first appeared in the fossil record some 150,000 to 100-ish years before present day, and there is evidence that moose populations were negatively impacted by climate change, of course, during the Pleistocene era. That's hard to say.
It is.
The glacial refugia moose population in Eurasia seems to have comprised two distinct genetic clades that evolved before what's called the last glacial maximum, or LGM, and then diversified afterwards. Radiocarbon data future suggested that moose were absent from large parts of northern Europe during the LGM. However, during that period, the distribution of moose extended as far south as the Italian peninsula, the Balkans, and the Carpathians, which is pretty far to the south.
That's really far.
Yeah. During the Holocene, Central and Eastern Europe were recolonized by moose from a glacial refugium, and Eastern Europe and Scandinavia was recolonized from the south via a southern land bridge, which, if you know geography, you know that used to exist. The northward shift of Eurasia boreal forests at the end of the LGM not only facilitated the recolonization of higher latitudes, but also allowed moose then to colonize North America because of the land bridge. They were able to move there. Without having to swim across the sea, which I feel like they could have, but whatever.
I mean, possibly.
It's scary to think about, but maybe. While both Europe and North American moose populations display evidence of founder effects and bottlenecks associated with past climate changes, there is also evidence for recent anthropogenic impacts on their genetic diversity. If you don't know what founder effects and bottlenecks are, I highly suggest you look it up. It'll explain a lot about other species as well. In Europe, the recent population history of the species were marked by a range-wide bottleneck dating back some 18 to 1200 years ago, and a more recent decline in moose numbers was also documented in the 18th and 20th century. Population declines during the Holocene contributed to shaping the current pattern of genetic diversity, where the Scandinavian population shows the lowest genetic diversity and the highest inbreeding. So this seems, I mean, obviously this happens with other species as well, where there's so few that you end up having these inbred genetics, and that changes a lot. I mean, we've seen that in the past human genealogy as well, the effects of inbreeding and the true effect of having such small genetic diversity in your genome, because that means if one of you is susceptible to something, pretty much all of you are.
Yep.
And of course, that's bad for the species. Similarly, the species experienced a recent bottleneck in North America associated with human-induced decline, so like habitat loss, for example, in the 1800s, which could also then have exposed our current moose population now from inbreeding issues. So again, if one group of moose hasn't adapted to not being affected by that specific deer parasite. Chances are none of them have, because maybe they had inbreeding issues, and now that's just something that's genetically issuous with the population. And that's it. That's about all the moose facts I can give you, really. There's not a whole lot else to know, other than maybe don't taunt it by calling it dense and throwing things at it, and just let them live their best moose life.
Yeah. I think, it's like with every wild animal, keep your distance, admire from afar, use the zoom on your camera. We're not trying to make friends with the moose.
No. It's tempting. I'm not going to lie.
It is
very tempting, but not the best idea. No.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, that I hope you guys enjoyed learning about the moose. I'm very partial to moose in general, so this was good for me. I feel good about it.
I feel good about it too. Thank you so much for sharing your love of moose and meeses.
Of course. Anytime.
Also, just to clarify, I probably should have said this at the beginning. Meese is not the appropriate plural of moose, just so everyone knows. We're just being stupid.
We're just being ridiculous. It's just moose. It is both singular and plural.
Just clarify, in the English language, it is not meese.
We're very aware.
It could be, but it's not.
It's not mooses either, or meeses.
No. Mm-mm.
You would think mice, but it's not that either, because there's already a mice. So
there is.
They had to come up with something else, and they're like, let's just make it the same.
Yeah.
How confusing. But yeah, you guys can connect with us as well.
Yes, you can. You can connect with us at mediocrecontentpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Mediocre Content Podcast, or catch up with us every other Thursday on Twitch at Mediocre Content Podcast. And that happens at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, or 11 p.m. BST. And don't forget to rate us 5 stars on any platform at all. Like, I don't even think you can rate 5 stars on TikTok, but you can put 5 stars in the comments. Do what you got to do.
That's how we know you listen to this podcast, that you put 5 stars in our comment section on one of our TikToks.
That's right. We hope you enjoyed your moose lesson, and we will see you next week for some more October content.
Cheers.